Hi guys, welcome to Skarbek Studio, my little tiny sewing community on the internet. And if you want to learn how to sew, if you want to grow your skills, talk about fashion, all that, then you're in the right place. Okay, so today I'm going to teach you how to make this beautiful summer dress. And fun fact about this dress is that this is a new version of an old pattern that I made 2 years ago. And this was one of my first patterns that I have ever made for my sewing store. If you want to sew along and make this dress with me, then go to Skarbek Studio on Etsy. Everything will be linked down below, and that's where you can purchase the sewing pattern. And this is a cool thing. If you bought this dress before, the older version, then check your inbox because I send the new version for free to everybody who bought the old version. This is like a little surprise. If you have old version and you don't want to use new version, then the sewing steps are pretty much the same. If you want to help this channel grow and get more free sewing content, fashion content, then subscribe and comment down below. And if you don't know what to comment, then just comment word summer. And one more thing, you're very welcome to join this sewing community. And if you want to be more part of it, more active in this community, then you can follow Skarbek Studio on Instagram or TikTok. TikTok is a little different. I post different content on all platforms, so that is something that you'll get. And yeah, let's connect on those platforms. I talk so much. I could talk for days. So let's get to sewing. To make this dress, you'll need some pins, bias tape maker for straps, some slides and rings for adjustable straps. You'll also need some non-roll elastic waistband that is 2 centimeters wide, and you will also need fabric scissors. I already cut out my pattern pieces, prepared my bias tape for straps, and overlock skirt edges. Start by closing bust darts. On the left side of the fabric, pin perpendicular to the seam and start sewing from wide edge to narrow one. Do not backstitch at the end. Instead, tie it twice to reinforce the stitch and trim the rest of the thread. Repeat same steps for all darts. Press flat with your iron to smooth out the seam, then to one side towards the side seam. Turn to the right side and press once again with piece of fabric in between your pattern and iron. Repeat for all 4 darts. Place front bodices right sides together and pin at the center front seam. Straight stitch the seam. Always backstitch at the beginning and the end. Press flat and open on the left side of the fabric and then press again on the right side. Repeat the same steps for lining. Place front bodice and back bodice pieces right sides together and straight stitch at the side seam. Press the seams the same way you pressed previous ones and repeat the same steps for lining. I just finished sewing my bodice pieces together, so front back bodice and also lining. And before I attach main bodice to lining, I need to work on my straps. So here I have this long strap. We have to sew a straight stitch across the strap, right? And after that, I'm going to cut it into 5 separate pieces. I don't really care about backstitching it at the beginning and the end because the end of the strap will hide in the seam line. So I don't really care about it. The stitch is pretty strong. And if you're afraid that your strap will open, you can basically first cut it into 5 separate pieces and then stitch each individual strap, backstitch it at the beginning and at the end. I'm not gonna do it like I said, so here it is. My fabric is very loosely woven, so if I cut it on a bias, it would fray like crazy. It would be very difficult to work with, so I decided to just cut it parallel to the selvage. And actually, this is what I would recommend you to do as well. It saves you fabric, it's gonna look great. You do not have to cut it on a bias, so That's just one thing that I want to let you know. And if you are like, no, I want to cut on a bias, then you need more fabric. So if you buy my pattern, then I am counting this strap in it, but I'm counting the amount of fabric that I need that is not cut on a bias, if it makes sense. So if you want to cut it on a bias, you will need to buy more fabric. Fold strap in half and sew a straight stitch to close it. Now I'm going to show you how to make adjustable straps. All measurements are in the manual. You need longer and shorter strap, and you also need one slider and one ring. Pull the shorter strap through the ring and pin at the end to close it. Pull the longer strap through the slider. That will be the right side of the strap, so the one that's visible when you wear the dress. Grab the shorter strap with the ring and pull the longer strap through the same ring. Thread the strap through slider one more time to create adjustable strap. Hopefully you can see it well. I tried my best here. Fold the end of the tape and hand stitch in place to secure the slider. This is what I would recommend you to do. Just hand stitch your straps to the bodice, and then after, when you're going to put lining on top of this, then it's going to reinforce it a little bit more. So don't worry, you don't have to hand stitch it super well, if it makes sense. As you can see here, I've already hand stitched it. So what you have to do is place right sides of the bodice to right side of the strap and hand stitch it at the front and back, just like I'm doing here. Make sure your strap is not twisting. Place bodice and lining right sides together and pin the top of the bodice. Stitch it in place. Press it flat and open, and then towards the lining. We will sew a straight stitch through the layer of lining and seam allowance in a second. Understitch your lining by sewing a straight stitch close to the seam line. This will prevent lining from showing to the right side. Press it with an iron. Turn the bodice left side out so the right sides are facing each other again, and pin through the back, underarm, and front. Start sewing from the back notch. Press flat and then towards the lining as far as you can. Understitch, starting from the back, stitch as long as you can. Cut the corners, notch and trim seam allowance and press, so it's nice and flat on the right side. Once again, turn the back bodice left side out. Pin and stitch the seam that's parallel to the center back. Then sew from side seam to back notch, leaving a gap for back strap. Trim seam allowance and cut corners. Press flat on the left side, then turn to the right side and press again. As you can see, the gap that we left formed a tunnel for back strap. Let's work on the back skirt first. As you can see, I marked with little dots how far to fold the waistline. Fold the waistline towards the left side of the fabric. Pin in place and stitch. As you can see, I have done it already. Cut the right amount of elastic. Mark the seam allowance on both sides. Pull the elastic through the tunnel. I pinned at the seam allowance so it doesn't move. As you can see, I pinned my elastic inside the seam allowance. Now you have to straight stitch back and forth in the seam line. Let's work on the front part. Mark your seam allowance on the left side of the waistline just for reference. Pin front and back skirt pieces right sides together at the side seam. As you can see, I left my front waist seam allowance free and pinned below it in the seam line. This is very important. Straight stitch the side seams. Press it flat and press it open. Then press seam allowance towards the front. Mark center front. Change stitch length to 4 or above. Sew a straight stitch 6 mm below waist edge and another one 6 mm below the first one. Make sure to leave a good amount of thread hanging and do not backstitch. We're going to use it to gather the skirt. Place front skirt and bodice right sides facing each other. Match the center front and side seams first. Seam allowance is pinned towards center front. Spread gathers evenly. Straight stitch from side seam to side seam. Press flat and open. Turn the garment right side out, fold lining towards the inside of the bodice to close the seam. Pin in place the left side of the fabric. Then re-pin on the right side. It's just easier this way. This is how it looks like. And right now, what you have to do is you just have to stitch it in the ditch on the right side of the fabric, right here in the seam line. And this stitch will be invisible on the right side of the fabric. It will be visible on the left side of the fabric, but it doesn't really matter, it's fine. Sew a straight stitch in the ditch on the right side of the fabric. The stitch will be invisible on the right side. So this is how it looks like on the inside, and this is the right side. Grab your back strap and pull it through the tunnels. Let's work on the second tier. Place front and back, right sides facing each other, pin and stitch at the side seam. Press flat and open. Repeat the same for third tier. Mark center front and center back on both tiers. Gather third tier the same way we did the first one. I like to gather it in parts, so front side seam to front side seam first, and then the same with the back. Connect second and third tier together. Place them right sides facing each other, match side seam first, and then center back and center front. Spread gathers evenly. I like to do it in quarters. I start with the first one, I spread and pin the fabric evenly. Then I go and stitch it together. It's just easier this way. Repeat for all four. Okay guys, we are closer to the end, closer to finishing this dress, and yeah, this is how it looks like. I pressed it flat, then open and attached it together. And now what you have to do is gather this part and attach it the same way as we attached those layers together. You have to attach it to the bodice, and we're almost done. And then just hem the dress, and you can wear it anywhere you want. So I'm gonna show you how to do it. Fold the hem 1.5 centimeters towards the inside and press with your iron. Afterwards, I straight stitch in the overlock seam. Press it again on the right side. The dress is done. The dress is ready. And it looks so good. It looks better than I thought it would. And I think it's the color. I think the color is perfect. But look at this. And look at the back. I am obsessed. I am obsessed. I love this dress. And if you want to sew it, then sewing pattern is available on Skarbek Studio on Etsy. And the cool thing about this is that you're going to get a few different options. So you're going to get an option for just the top. You're going to get a separate pattern for 2-tier dress. This one kind of looks like 2-tier, honestly. It's supposed to be 3, but I made a little mistake. It's okay. And you're also going to get option for 3-tiered dress. So 3 patterns in one, available on Skarbek Studio. And if you decide to make this dress, please let me know what you think about it, because I would love to know. And if you want to join my little tiny sewing community that is slowly growing, you can follow me on TikTok on Skarbek Studio and on Instagram Skarbek Studio as well. If you have any questions, message me here or there. Leave a comment. If you don't know what to say, just say the word summer. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.